Howdy y'all, sharpening knives on whetstones is super easy, and after a little practice it is a great way to keep your knife sharp. The first thing you'll need is a whetstone. With this one we have a 400 grit and a 1000 grit. We will start with the 400 grit side and then move to the 1000 grit side. And this is good for most use cases, especially for what I'm going to do today. So we have a tub and we have our whetstone and we have water. We're just going to pour a good amount of water in here. Okay, now that we have our tub full of water, we can put the whetstone in it and set it aside for around 10 minutes or until it stops bubbling. It's good to flip it over every few minutes just so you can see the bubbles on each side coming up and you know if it's done or not. Okay, besides the whetstones, I'm going to use 2 cloths, one to set on the table to catch any water that comes off of the whetstone and keep the table dry, and another one to wipe down the knife and the tops of the whetstones. You're also going to want to have a honing rod, which we will use at the end to refine the edge even further by taking off any metal inconsistencies. Another good thing to have is some paper that you can use to see the before and after results, and also throughout the middle to see how it's sharpening and how good the cutting capabilities are. Okay, the most important thing obviously is a dull knife, which I do not have at the moment, but we can change that quite easily. Here is a rock which will help us get our knife to the desired state that we need it to be. Okay, now that we have our rock and our knife, it's time to dull. Now that we have our dull knife, we can do the paper test and see how it cuts. As you can see, it really doesn't want to cut the paper. The first thing we need to do is find an angle, and this can vary depending on the knife. This is a Japanese knife and the angle is around 15 degrees, which is a lot lower than most Western knives. This knife is more of a tactical knife, so it's supposed to hold up more, and this angle is around 35-40 degrees. The knife I'm going to sharpen today is around 25 degrees. Okay, so it has been around 10 minutes and I don't see any more bubbles, so we can go ahead and take it out and start sharpening. Now that we have our whetstone ready and our dull knife, we can start. Since I'm going to freehand my angle, there are a few easy steps to find the angle you need once you know what angle your knife is at. Okay, I'm going to start at 90 degrees in the middle, and I'm going to break that in half, and then break that in half again. Now that we've found our angle, we need to wet our stone. You need to spread that across so it's wet all the way, and then we can start sharpening. So find your angle, 90, 45, 20, and then we can start sharpening. And then we flip it, and make sure that you're going from the tip all the way down to the back, because you don't want to miss a spot. And one thing you need to be very careful of is that you're not swinging the knife. You need to keep it level and at the same angle at all times. And you also need to make sure your stone stays wet. And as you start On one side, you know when you're finished, when you can feel the edge and the metal has come over. You can feel like a little ridge at the end of the knife, and that's when you know you can flip over. After a few minutes of sharpening, you're going to want to pour more water on. Then you're going to want to take a rag and wipe it off, because you're going to be getting off little metal bits, and you're also going to be getting off little bits of stone that have come off. Now you're going to want to reapply water and continue sharpening. Okay, now that I have been doing this for a few minutes, this should be sharp enough, and then we should be able to flip it over. But first, we're going to do a paper test to see how much better it is. It's still not great, but at least it's cutting into the paper. Now we are going to flip this over and start with the 1000 grit stone. Make sure to wipe off your knife, because you don't want any of the 400 grit material or any metal splinters coming onto this finer stone, so it can stay fine. And then you can find your angle and start. Okay, now that we have our knife and we're finished with 1000 grit, it's been a few minutes and it's very sharp now. We are ready to use our honing rod, and then we'll do one last paper test. Okay, the honing rod will really help refine your edge, because you can't see it, but I can feel that there are little scratches along the blade that this will take out. So what you want to do is you want to hold it straight up and down, and then you want to take your blade and find your angle and go from back to front in one smooth motion on both sides. Now that our blade is finished, we're going to do one last paper test. As you can see, it cuts through very easily. And that was a demonstration of how to sharpen a knife. Thank you.